or somebody behind that cursor. I want to, on behalf of our Board of Commissioners at the Downtown Development District, thank you all for being here. I want to commend particularly all of our retailers, restaurants, and I've got to add hospitality into that, because we know that the tough situation that all those groups have been in. And I want to applaud you for like every time we get thrown a curveball in New Orleans, y'all step up big and come up with creative ways to continue to operate and just do the outstanding job that you do every day. So I want to thank y'all for continuing to be the rocks that you are for downtown New Orleans and for this city. You know, our intent at the Downtown Development District is to preserve the thriving downtown that we were fortunate to create before this, so that as we get through the other side, we can really hit the ground running and propel downtown to even greater heights. And that's why sessions like today. Joining us, let me do a quick introduction. I think some of you have been introduced in voice and visual to Sandra Brown. Sandra is president of MDRG. She's which is a local market research firm, and in particular, probably most important, right, Sandra, the Downtown Development District's market research firm, based right in downtown New Orleans. So thank you, Sandra, for being with us. She's going to talk a little bit about what we found in some of our recent research regarding people's perceptions of getting back to shopping. Chantel Reed is with us. Chantel is the Deputy Director of the Department of Health for the City of New Orleans. I know personally, because I think many of you know my connection to the Department of Health. Chantel does a lot there. She wears many hats, but today she's with us to discuss some of the myths and facts regarding transmission of COVID-19. Just from a public health standpoint, we wanted you all to be aware of what the facts are. Before we get into our featured presenter is Cynthia Stewart. Cindy was a longtime member of the staff at the International Council of Shopping Centers, is a seasoned community relations and public policy executive. Particularly her background is specialized in public-private partnerships and in corporate social responsibility. So we're looking forward, Cindy, to your presentation today. Thanks again for being with us. Just a few words before we go on with the presentation. We wanted you all to be aware that, you know, throughout COVID, our clean team, I think you all know this, has been on the streets. They never left. We immediately put in place protocols to keep them safe, to keep the public safe. But we started doing enhanced sanitizing of downtown surfaces like the handles on garbage cans and as you can see here, transit stops and so forth. The same with our public safety team. Our public safety team, rangers, private patrol, and NOPD just never took a break. We put in place safety mechanisms to make sure that they were safe, and we've been very fortunate with that so far. I want to thank them all for their continued hard work, under these difficult circumstances. In addition to that, the DDD really early on knew that we had to do some things differently. One is that we're going to have to remind people that we are still here, that the businesses, the amenities, the restaurants, everything downtown, the galleries, as I mentioned before, are still here, ready to offer services, ready to continue to grow the relationships that they've had with the downtown in the regional economy for years and years, some going over 100 years. So we've since June have run now a couple of different campaigns. The first one in the upper left-hand corner here, Downtown Welcomes You Back, and then the one that's running currently, Experience Downtown NOLA, which is a lot more upbeat, but still shows people wearing masks and doing the right thing and shopping in our our really impressive collection of downtown shops and restaurants. We have continued through social media to promote downtown. I mentioned Kenny Rubenstein, the fact that he appeared in one of our videos earlier. And I think you can move on to the next slide, Greta. So if any of y'all want us to share videos that show how you are continuing to operate during this time of COVID, contact Josh Varon on our communications team, or Devon Adolio, our director of communications. They'll give you the parameters that we need. And we invite you to send us a 30-second video, and we'll share it. We've got, between our What's Up Downtown email list and our social, we've got over 50,000 followers. So it's not an insignificant number of folks, and we're happy to share your good news about how you continue to operate during COVID. The website, I'll remind everybody, downtownnola.com continues to be a real treasure trove. I compliment the communications team for the job that they've done. Greta, next slide, please. To keep that updated, not with just downtown information, but downtown information about the Main Street program, the PPP program, all that has been available at downtownnola.com. And then I mentioned before, What's Up Downtown, our weekly newsletter that comes out every Friday. That continues to have the latest information about what's happening downtown, how people can continue to stay engaged. And then more recently, we've promoted the city's Mask Up NOLA campaign through some of our commissioners and our staff and so forth, showing that if we do this right, if we pay attention to the rules, which I know that Chantel will talk about in just a moment, we can get back to business, but we got to follow the rules. We got to do it safely. Lastly, Greta, if you could just move on to the last slide. I just want to remind you again, for our retailers, our galleries, our restaurants, if you want to share a video with us, we are more than happy to share that through our social media followers, who, I have to say, our engagement has increased, probably like a lot of folks, because people have more time, they're more focused on social because the actual is not there as much, but our social has just gone through the roof in terms of engagement since this. So it's a great way to help get the word out about what you are doing, to keep commerce moving downtown during COVID. So with that, once again, thank you to our commissioners and to our staff, everybody, particularly our economic development staff and our comm team, many of whom I've mentioned already, Ryan and Lee and LaSwanda on the economic development team, for helping pull together today. Without further ado, I want to once again introduce Sandra Brown, who's going to tell you a little more about what we found in our research a couple of months ago. Sandra?
Great, thank you, Kurt. I'm going to share my screen here before I get started. Great, so everyone should be able to see my screen. I wanted to take you through the results of the research that Kurt referenced. And I guess what I want to start with, it goes without saying that the retail landscape has changed dramatically since March of 2020. And some of those changes were already in motion. Certainly the pandemic has accelerated some of the shifts that we have been seeing, such as online shopping, grocery delivery, and really the increasing importance of the customer experience. As Kurt mentioned, MDRG, in partnership with the Downtown Development District, has conducted a perceptions and image study for a number of years. And in April of this year, we pivoted this study somewhat to add questions that were designed to understand how COVID-19 has and is impacting visitation downtown, and more importantly, what it will take to encourage people to come back. We talked to almost 500 residents in the greater New Orleans area, and about 300 stakeholders who either live, work, or own a business downtown. And so that's the result. That's the study that I'm going to take you through. Just to kind of talk a little bit about some of the changes that we've seen, the retail landscape has changed. We're seeing this both on a national landscape and the local level. We've seen a shock to brand loyalty, which we typically see during recessions, but it was fueled in part by the need to try new brands in the absence of some of those tried and true brands that are part of our just mainstay. And the data shows, as we're looking at this data, that some of those consumers are not going to go back, which certainly represents an opportunity, but also a threat if we don't pay attention to some of the expectations that consumers are asking of us. We've seen a flight from traditional retailers to more digital delivery channels. Online shopping is here to stay. It's not going to go away. I don't think we'll be doing it as much, but it's not going to go away when this pandemic is over. And consumers are spending more time at home, which means that there's more of a focus on the home environment. And lastly, we're seeing a renewed focus on buying local, supporting local businesses, which is certainly an opportunity for all of us in downtown New Orleans. So let's hone in on downtown New Orleans specifically. While the results of this study are greater and broader than I can present in this 7 to 9 minute presentation, the highlights are that at a very high level, people are feeling slightly more positive about downtown than they were 2 years ago. What we as researchers often do is look at the difference between respondents who have positive impressions of downtown minus those who have negative impressions, and we call that net positive, which is that bottom line on this chart. And if you look at the general population, that's the greater New Orleans area, we see that the net positive between 2018 and 2020 has gone up from 23 to 30 in those 2 years. For stakeholders, again, those are people who live, work, or own a business downtown. Not surprisingly, they have more positive impressions of downtown than the general population. And we see a net positive of 60, which is an incremental 13 points from 2018. So all that to say there's a lot of positivity and goodwill about downtown at the moment. The research also really unpacked what are consumers' perceptions of risk by destination downtown. And what we see on this chart is a range from those they're most comfortable visiting on the left to those they're least comfortable visiting on the right. What we see is restaurants and bars, grocery stores are seen as less risky to visit than other potential destinations downtown. And some of the variations that we're seeing in this perception of risk is driven by a number of elements. As unpacked in this research, the destination's associated crowd size and traffic levels, how long they expect that visit to last or the duration, whether it's an indoor or an outdoor setting. They're also looking at how are the employees and other customers behaving? For example, are they wearing masks? Is the business enforcing mask wearing? Can they visibly see that business disinfecting those areas? And then, kind of a corollary to that, what are the rules and regulations for entering? So what are you requiring of customers when they come into your establishment? Taking these same factors, then we wanted to know of those people who had previously indicated prior to the pandemic that they came downtown for any of these activities, how many and what is their likelihood that they're going to return to normal activities this fall? And so the numbers that are below those categories from the prior page indicate the percentage who say they're likely to return. And let me just caveat this, however, we all know that this situation and the information that we're getting is very fluid. And so I want to say that this is a snapshot in time from April. And while I fully expect that if we were to field this study today, the numbers might be slightly different than what we're seeing here. But I also want to note, and this is the real story here, is these numbers are strong. And I want us all to feel encouraged by the fact that these are strong numbers. So if you look at restaurants, 70% of people who came downtown to go to a restaurant prior to the pandemic are saying they'll come back sometime this fall. 64% of bars. Now, certainly that is going to be impacted by whether or not we move and at what time we move from phase 3. But galleries and museums, 76% of people that came downtown to visit a gallery prior to the pandemic say, I will come back. 61% for museums and 72% for retail stores. You know, the numbers sort of fall down when you start looking at these events that require and involve a larger crowd, to my point earlier. But again, strong numbers, and that should be some encouragement for all of us. You know, in talking with residents of downtown in a more open-ended and qualitative interview, we asked them, what are the factors that really dictate your comfort with reopening? And they really talked about this need for a sense of safety about being in public areas downtown, and that being highly dependent on a number of issues, and some that are more actionable for us as businesses that have locations downtown, is to clearly communicate the rules and restrictions that you're putting in place. They need to visibly see you disinfecting your business and public areas, which Kurt talked to in terms of what the DDD is doing. They're looking for you to have reduced occupancy and address their concerns about, you know, the size of the crowd, if you will, in your establishment. And then a little less actionable for some of us, but I think something to keep in mind is they're looking for information about COVID-19. There's been a lot of misinformation and conflicting and confusing information, but I think about even the building that I'm in, which is the Exchange Center. When we walk in the building, there are clearly posted signs about expectations around mask wearing, number of people in the elevator, and various other expectations that really not only give me and the people that are in this building assurance that the building is taking this seriously, but also in some way empowers us to protect ourselves. You know, others that are a little more dependent on other people, looking at other people's behavior and adherence to rules. Again, I would suggest that that is something we as businesses can do. And then certainly broader issues that are more public health issue, which is seeing a decline in cases and the availability of the vaccine, which brings a whole nother set of challenges in terms of willingness to take the vaccine beyond the scope of this conversation. You know, we wanted to understand which safety measures will increase visitation downtown. And what visitors tell us is that they'll be more comfortable in stores that take their safety measures seriously. And we've all heard reports of stores that post safety rules but don't enforce them. You know, I would suggest from our data that your customers and clients are looking to you to enforce. They appreciate that enforcement. They feel safer when they see the proprietors and the owners taking the lead visibly. We're seeing this in other research that we're doing outside of the retail industry. For instance, for Ochsner Health System, what's it going to take for people to come back for routine care? It's a lot of the same things that we're hearing. Disinfecting regularly, limiting the number of people in the store at one time, requiring masks, and more importantly, communicating those measures that you're taking. That's what's going to give consumers the confidence to come back downtown, to shop at the stores downtown, to eat at restaurants, even if it's outside the restaurants that are downtown. So what are some of the things that you can do to encourage visitation? Well, in the near term, I would suggest that one is really to actively demonstrate adherence to the CDC guidelines. You know, ensure that there's space for social distancing, enforce mask rules, put up signage, some of the things that we've already talked about, but making sure that your customers know what you're doing and that you're actively enforcing those. They're looking to see what you're doing from the standpoint of disinfecting these spaces that they're going to be in when they come downtown, and communicate to them that this is happening. To some extent, I would suggest they need to see that, whether it's, you know, this visible hand sanitizer sitting on the counter. Show them that you're taking this seriously and that you are giving them visible signs of what you're doing to disinfect. And I would also suggest that we need to expect that shopping is going to resume downtown. They're going to come back to shop. They're going to come back to restaurants, as we saw in that data. So make sure that you're communicating that you're open and communicating what the rules are for safety. Don't wait for them to come to you for that. More longer term recommendations or things that you need to kind of think about strategically is think about integrating delivery, e-commerce, and at-home channels for the future. This isn't just a stopgap measure. This isn't going away. And this experience needs to be seamless for consumers. It needs to be easy, but making sure that you're understanding that this is going to be a bit of the future. And certainly in the interim, this is what they're looking for from you. And then lastly, I would suggest really ensure that you are focusing on the customer experience. Even before this pandemic, even before March of 2020, we were seeing a greater emphasis on the customer experience. And increasingly so, customer experience is going to be the driver of these delivery channels. So how do you make it easy for them to interact with you and to purchase from you and buy from you? So just to wrap up, yes, the retail landscape has changed a lot since March. And that said, there are things that you can do to encourage people to come back and to encourage people to want to come back to support you, to support local and come back downtown. It's going to require a pivot for us all, and it will require change in the way that we interact with our customers, some of which will be temporary, some of which will be permanent. But I encourage you to think about meeting customers where they are, including their need for safety and reassurance. Focus on some of these alternative delivery channels. I encourage you to rethink the customer experience and to reach out to your loyal customers who want to support you, but just need to know what you all are doing, and that so that you can meet them where they are. I want to offer to you, if you want to email me, if you have questions or would like to discuss any of these implications for your own business, my email is on the slide here. I really appreciate this opportunity, Kurt. Thank you. And I will turn it back over to Kurt.
Great. Thank you, Sandra. We appreciate that. Some fascinating findings, I'll just say, which is part of what was the impetus for us holding this webinar. I want to, without delay, introduce once again Chantel Reed. Chantel is going to talk to us about some of the myths and the facts about transmission, so that we can take what Sandra has given us and start to understand how it really plays out in the real world. Because I think one of the things that surprised several of us, and I saw it in the chat, we got a question from one of you, some surprise about people's concerns about going back to, typical kind of soft goods retail, which I think, from my perspective, I consider to be really extremely safe if undertaken under the right conditions with masks and distancing and so forth. So Chantel, take it away.
Thank you, Kurt. And thank you all for having me here today. I appreciated Sandra's perspective on the retail climate in the city. I think it gives a good background on where we are and how our approach to, or consumers' approach to shopping in a retail environment. I have been directly involved in a lot of our COVID-19 response here at the city, and I've seen a considerable amount of, I'll say, fever, right? People are ready to get back into the scope of things, and certainly you all are ready for them to get back into the scope of things. And the question was posed, what's the safety, thresholds, like what does it look like for a consumer coming in, and of course businesses being open. I would say that one of the things that we use here in the health department are, I call them the pillars of contact, and I can show you what I mean by that if necessary. But what we ask individuals, because of course, people call us and say, there's the possibility that I've been in contact, or what is, what's our risk factor? We say, number one, are you wearing a mask? Because there's a citywide mandate for individuals to wear a mask. So the expectation is that, number one, you're following that particular guideline. The second part of that was, are you 6 feet apart? And I have a slide. I'll show just a quick slide that I created, just so that you can kind of use this as a framework in order to be able to understand like how we look at it from our perspective. The other part of that is, did you have any physical touch? Was there a monetary transaction? Did you have to touch the individual? Did you have to stand in contact with them closer than 15 minutes? Those are the things that not only you, but also your staff should be asking those questions as they interact with individuals. I am, as Kurt mentioned, was featured in one of the in the latest commercial for downtown development, and it was a natural fit for me because I'm always shopping, I'm always downtown, I'm looking for somewhere to go tonight. And I will say, as an individual consumer, what we have seen are individuals practicing those particular safety precautions. If you follow those specific guidelines, is there physical touch? How long was it? Did you wash your hands immediately after? Were you in contact greater than 15 minutes? Did you wear your mask? Were you 6 feet apart? I mean, we all know going into a store, whether it's browsing or even shopping, has a much lower contact threshold than if we were sitting in a restaurant. The difference is that you have a very limited interaction with individuals as needed, because people are generally walking around, they are browsing, they're doing a great number of things, and they're generally moving about. So from a public health perspective, I can't say that we have a great deal of concern. I think that we put a lot of emphasis on the restaurants because there was a large concern there, because people would be sitting for much longer than 15 minutes, generally an hour and a half, 2 hours, with multiple contacts, with receiving food, passing over from a table to another table, whatever. So there was a great deal of concern that was put into just restaurant contacts. And what we've seen here in the health department is that there's not been a lot of, we have not seen directly the numbers where we've had restaurants that have had to shut down because there's been this high contact threshold. So I would have to say that from the NOLA Health Department and from a public health perspective, we don't feel that there's that strong concern that we would say, this is a risk factor for us in inhibiting your ability to be able to conduct business. We continue to push, we continue to reinforce that, follow the main 3 guidelines. And if there is a situation where you have come in contact with someone with COVID, that there are safety precautions in place that you can keep the staff and your consumers safe and comfortable with, of course, patronizing your establishments. But that's our perspective from a public health seat. And I would say that we are available and here to assist as we fielded calls. But there's not been a whole lot from a retail perspective. So it's very promising, myself as a consumer, but also from a public health standpoint, is that we're not passing COVID throughout our communities in those engagements and interactions. So that is our perspective as the New Orleans Health Department. And we are always here to assist and support whatever businesses in navigating how you develop procedures and develop precautions in order to keep everyone safe in this in current climate, in the pandemic climate. So Kurt, I'll turn it back over to you, and I'll be on hand if there's any other questions that anyone has for me specifically.
All right, great. Thanks, Chantel. Yeah, I think, the news is that the rules are certainly not complicated, are they? We just got to follow the rules. So next is Cindy Stewart. Cindy, I hope, is going to talk to us a little bit about some of the ways that other places may have communicated that they are following the rules, and then just a little bit of general talk about how to stay engaged, how to re-engage, how to do even more engagement with your customers in this time of COVID. So Cindy, you ready to go?
I am, Kurt. Thanks so much. It's a pleasure to be with all of you this morning and share some thoughts and ideas on marketing and driving business during a time of COVID-19. I really appreciate the opportunity. We're going to talk today about some 5 ways to drive business during COVID-19. And before we get started, I just want to acknowledge that, we may have some different levels of engagement or marketing experience among the attendees that are on this call. And I just want you to know I'm aware of that. And so some of this may seem a little elementary to some of you, and some of you may be already embracing a lot of these ideas. But my hope today is that everyone will get at least one good idea or tip that they can take and use in their own business. So I do want to remind you that it's being recorded, so you don't need to worry about taking a lot of notes. I'll also provide the PowerPoint to the DDD so that you'll have the hyperlinks to some of the resources that I'm going to share. And so to get us started, I want to talk to you about your website. Have you looked at your website recently, and have you looked at it through your customer's eyes? Has it been updated with the information that they're really concerned about now as it relates to your operating hours, whether you're doing special curbside delivery, have new protocols in place? And is that information easy to find? Here's just one example I want to share with you. This restaurant, when you go to their website, this pop-up box is the first thing you see on their website, and it takes you directly to the health and safety information for the restaurant. So you don't have to look for it. It's right there. It's in your face. And then when you go back to visit the homepage, they've reiterated what their operating capacity is, what their operating hours are. And then you see down at the bottom, they have also included a testimonial from a customer so that you can get that personal touch that really will resonate with your customers. So I would just encourage you to go back and look at your website again. Is it up to date? And look at it from your customer's perspective, where they are today with the issues and concerns that they have. And then as we think about those health and safety protocols that were just mentioned, about how important it is to have those in place, what else are you doing in your business to make your customers feel comfortable there? Are you taking necessary steps to provide less contact? Have you rearranged traffic in the store so they're not having to go? In the old days, you wanted them to move all the way through the store to the back, to the merchandise, to have the most time in the store that they could have. Now with today's concerns, do you have those items closer to the front so they're able to get in and get out and get the things that they want from you? So those are all aspects of operation that you should really think about. As you think about how you're running your store, are you using the sidewalk to increase your square footage? Are you using QR codes to share menus, or to provide an opportunity to make payments using your cell phone so that you have that contactless payment? And if you are you marketing and sharing that information with your customers? And we talked about the social distancing, and I would encourage you to think about a way to maybe make a connection between your store, your products, and some of these tools that you're putting into place, and make them fun. If you're selling donut holes, do not worry, just stay 6 feet apart, make it a little fun, because these are stressful times that we're in. And once you put these new services in place for your customers, go back and look at the website again. Make sure that information is readily available to them, because that's what is going to make them comfortable coming into the store, knowing that you've put things in place that make them feel safe. And as we think about NOLA Ready, I see that's an initiative of the City of New Orleans. Are you marketing the steps that you've put into place to be NOLA ready? Here's what the City of Greenville is doing to be reopening responsibly. And when a business signs on to the initiative, they're given the placards to put in the windows of their store to show that they're taking this seriously and following all the protocols. So whether it's NOLA ready or your own personal business initiatives that you've adopted, make sure you're sharing that information with your customers. And then we get back to your customer needs. They're changing every day. Where they were in March and April is not necessarily where they are today, but people are still stressed. They're still concerned about health and safety issues, and their product needs may not be exactly the same right now. So when you're thinking about your business, I want you to also think about your customers and where they are today, and address that when you're reaching out to them through your marketing materials. The Painted Door Boutique, tough times last, but never last, but the tough people do. You know, they're acknowledging the stress that the customers are under, but then they're also talking about the fact that they've made curbside pickup available. And if you look at the bottom, they're even encouraging the customers to shop from their Instagram page. If your customers you find are really more concerned about health and safety issues, have you adjusted your hours? Are you maybe offering shop by appointment before the store opens or after the store closes? And if you are you sharing that information with them on your website and through other channels? And then when we think about product offerings, oftentimes it's the customers who can come up with some really great ideas about what they need. And when they do, make sure you really grasp that, embrace it, and then share that information with the rest of your customers, because this is a great opportunity to think about where customers are today and how you can meet them where they are. And in that vein, that's why it's so important to stay connected with your customers. You may have a comprehensive mailing list. You may have previously connected with your customers, you know, via mail. Maybe you have very active Instagram and Facebook pages. If you don't have any of that in place, you've got a telephone. And do you have some phone numbers of some of your really loyal customers that you can pick up the phone and give a call? Ask how they're doing, ask what their needs are, ask what their concerns are. I would say use as many of those channels as you can to stay in touch with your customers. You want to let them know what's going on with your health and safety protocols. You want to show empathy for where they are in their life right now and the things that they're dealing with, and then show them what you're doing, you know, to keep your business relevant to them. If you need to work on your mailing list, this is the first thing you see when you go to the Rubenstein's website, the pop-up to join the mailing list. I know the DDD indicated they have a very robust mailing list. So there are lots of ways to connect with your customers. Maybe you're a member of a club or an organization that has a very robust mailing list, and those people that are a member of that club or organization are a lot of your target customers. So maybe they'll be willing to help you get the word out about what's going on in your store. And then when we think about messaging, you know, are you keeping the website up to date with regular updates? You know, here you can see Target has, since April, July, and into August, they continue to advise the customers what they have going on with COVID and with operating procedures. And I found this was really an interesting take on all the things that is happening in New Orleans, you know, with the outlet collection. And this is the platform that they used. It's, I would say, a little corporate in its look. But then we have another huge corporate entity, Westfield, and they chose to take a more fun approach to getting the information out in their customers. There's not one right or wrong way to get your messaging out. I would just say it's important that you do that. And so if you think about your own personal business culture and maybe the mindset of your customers, you'll pick the one that works best for you. I think the main thing is that you just pick one. There's various approaches that work. Just make sure you're sharing those updates. And when you do that, it's not just enough to keep the website up to date. You want to utilize all channels to reach your customers. And I just want to share with you, Omnicore, the advertising agency, tells us that 75.3% of all businesses will be on Instagram before the end of the year. Do you have an Instagram? Are your customers primarily teens and young adults? If they are, and you're not on Instagram, you're not reaching your customers. Are your customers primarily boomers, you know, that, you know, 55 and over age? 69% of all seniors who are on use the internet are using Facebook. You know, so you have to think about where your customer is. And if you want to really cultivate new customers, you don't want to limit yourself. So you want to utilize all those channels. And when you utilize those channels, you want to make sure that you're keeping it human, you're showing those cleaning protocols in action, your staff and your customers in masks, all of that's really important for your customers. And you might think, well, I don't have a big operating budget. Well, you really don't need one. If you look at Canal Place and the Riverwalk, they took a cell phone. They took a picture of a placard on the street and a store display, and that's what they used for their social media post. And you can do that too. And then if you want to be a little more upscale, you have a larger budget. You know, Nordstrom has a lot of followers on social media, but rather than make their own posts, what they chose to do was actually hire social media influencers who have millions of followers to come into the Nordstrom store in New York City, tour the store, pose for pictures, and then make these paid for posts to let people know how safe they felt being in the Nordstrom store. You might think, I don't have that kind of budget. Well, you don't necessarily need that kind of budget. Taloni Shoe Salon has a store mascot. So she masked up George and she made her social media posts on Instagram and Facebook. And she did this in May when Nordstrom's doing their posts in July, you know, and so you don't have a store mascot. Do you have a relationship with a local celebrity, a local personality who has a lot of social media followers? If you do, go to them, ask them to help you push the word out about what's going on in your retail establishment or your restaurant. Or, as Kurt mentioned, go to the DDD and show them some of the posts that you have, and they'll be more than willing to help you push and get the word out about your store and your protocols that you have in place, and you know what you're doing to make the store safe. And even retailers with those huge marketing budgets are making it personal and using the social media aspect to get the word out. You know, Instagram posts with the dog, Target's is in July, you know, but they also encourage their store employees to take their cell phone and shoot these personal videos in the store, interviewing customers, interviewing other teammates, and made that part of their Instagram post. Because that's what really can resonate with your customers right now. Even if you look on television ads, you see a lot of these big major corporations are embracing Zoom and using that as the base of their marketing campaigns. And so I would encourage you to think about doing that as well. And then I want to really revisit what Sandra talked about, which is, it's just a trend in the industry right now. Experiential retail. You'll hear that term a lot. And right now, when we're talking virtually, it's really important, right, to be able to connect with your customers. So if you're thinking about marketing campaigns and things you can do to reach your customers, think about how to match up your product and inventory with an experience. If you're a coffee shop, did you used to do poetry reading nights? You can still do that via Zoom and then offer coffee kits for sale to people. A really great example locally, your local cheese shop here in downtown New Orleans. I think this is a great idea. Cheese tastings via Zoom. You sign up for the class, you get the product, and you're able to connect with people and still make a sale. And you don't want to let this go once people are back really trying to make those personal connections with you, your employees, and other human beings. I mean, everybody is, you know, being sequestered right now, and they're really going to crave that personal connection, not just now, but in the future. So think creatively about experiences that you can create. Are you using Facebook Live to share products, new brands, secure sales? If not, I encourage you to think about that. Christy's been very successful selling shoes and clothes and jewelry online using Facebook Live. You have to make sure that you answer promptly all of the posts that are put on your Facebook or Instagram website. You don't want to leave people hanging. If they make comments about the shoes, about particular products, but they didn't make a purchase, go back, instant message them. Ask them, you know, if there's some way you might be able to help them. You know, it's just a way to really reach your current customers and new customers. And as you're launching new brands, You might think about some sort of a product launch via Zoom or Facebook Live, invitation only, maybe a special guest, make it an exclusive event. You do them in the stores, go ahead and do them online right now. You know, it's a way to push product. And then back to thinking about your customers and where they are right now. We've got a lot of these college students, right, who are now taking classes from home. They're back in their old childhood bedrooms. So Bed Bath & Beyond, they latched right onto that, and they curated a college from home collection. And that's a part of a marketing campaign that they have going on right now, you know, trying to sell products to college kids to get those childhood bedrooms, you know, to resemble in some fashion a college dorm room if they can. Kroger kicked off its teachers, and now with homeschooling honorary teachers discount. So think about who's in downtown New Orleans right now. Is it the healthcare workers, health and safety, government employees? And should you be offering them special discounts and doing special events for them to drive traffic and get them into the stores while they're downtown? Because I know a lot of office workers aren't there right now, and so you're missing some customers. So think about who you might be able to put together a campaign for to drive into your store. And when you're doing that, think about who you can partner with. Think outside the box, you know, partnering with restaurants and bars, maybe put together a partnership between a jewelry store, a shoe store, and a clothing store, do a Facebook Live together, and then they would have to go to all three stores to make the purchases for the great, you know, products or outfits that you show them on Facebook Live. So think about partners, who you can partner with, and then think about having fun. I want to share this link with you on nationalday.com. It's categorized by month and by day for different national and international days and festivals. And if you can find one that really resonates with you and your customers and your product line and put together a fun campaign, that's a great way to maybe generate some sales. I found it was interesting. Beard Day just happened on September 5th, and the Carolina Barbershop didn't offer a discount for a shave. They just used the National Beard Day as an opportunity to push out a social media post and remind people that they're still open for business. So it doesn't necessarily have to require a discount. And in fact, last year on International Coffee Day, the Squatch Life Clothing Company actually put together some specific new inventory products to sell as a part of International Coffee Day. So maybe there's a way to actually generate some new and additional sales in that regard. Or maybe you match together a couple of those days, like International Charity Day and National Cheese Pizza Day, and you drive some business, you create some sales, and you also do some good and make some donations to charity. So think outside the box when you think about all that. I did want to share one more idea with you, which the Madison Avenue bid is getting ready to launch tomorrow, which is Welcome Back Saturdays. And the art galleries are not yet open in New York City. So they've partnered with them, and they have all of the stores along Madison Avenue redoing their store windows and doing art displays in the store window, and they're doing a Madison Avenue gallery walk. And as a part of that, they're promoting, you know, the alfresco dining. They're going to have music periodically, you know, along the street throughout the day as a way to really drive traffic back to Madison Avenue. So it might be some sort of a formal event for the whole downtown, or maybe just think about an event that you could do with your store or the retailers that are on your block, you know, to try to drive traffic. It's really about thinking outside the box. And when you're doing these promotions, you have to think not just about the print and digital media, but also about the social media. You have to utilize every single channel that's available to you. And I don't want you to forget the street. You know, think about the banners, think about the placards, think about the signage, you know, when you think about how you can get the word out. You know, people are walking downtown, they're not sure if you're open or not. So you have to make it obvious. Yes, we're back open, you know, come on in and stop in and see us. And I want to revisit Target for just a moment here when I talk about using all of your social media. You might think they're a huge company, huge marketing budget. There's no way I can emulate Target. Well, I'm not really asking you to emulate Target. What I'm saying is look at what they're doing and pick and choose what they're doing that you can repackage and make relevant to you and your business. They're sending out regular emails from the CEO letting people know what's going on with Target and health and safety and coronavirus. They're keeping the website updated, which you can see through their various posts from April, July into August. They're having fun with social media, getting the pets and the employees out there in masks and sharing that information with their customers. So visit your website and look at it through a customer's eyes. Make sure you've done everything you can do to make your store as contactless as possible. Make sure you're regularly reevaluating your customers' needs and where they are, with the stress and the health issues that they're facing. Whatever you do, increase your social media outreach and presence. Surely you have some sort of a tech-savvy employee on your payroll who can help you with that if it's not something you personally are comfortable with doing. And find ways to stay connected with your customers. That's really important. Some of the best hints and tips you're going to get with them. And finally, I would leave you with this thought. Cultivate a trusted group of advisors. Your business neighbors, your friends, your customers, some of your employees. Have this discussion about now and in the future, generationally, how you can reach people, and you're bound to come up with some new ideas and inspiration that'll really help you drive your business.